everyone. I'm Jeannie Ralston, the founder of NextTribe, and we seem to be doing a lot of Latin American trips lately, and because it's such a fascinating place. I just got home from Mexico, and we were also in Peru earlier this fall. But in this summer, we are launching a new trip to Colombia. And one of the reasons is that we have a NextTriber who is born and raised there, and she's so delightful. She was on our trip to Cuba, and we were talking, and it just occurred to me what a fabulous trip Colombia would be. So Victoria Reyes, hi there. Thank you so much for being with us. And Victoria will be our guide, like kind of the woman with all the local knowledge and the culture and the connections to the land. So Victoria, you're an educator now. You were in Colombia until you were 19 and then moved to Austin. Now you're in New York City. What a fun life. How did you get to the US?
So I left Colombia when I was 19 and I came to study at the University of Texas in Austin. So that was kind of the thing that brought me. But really, it was kind of in the 80s, Colombia was a tough place to be, with all the things, right? Everybody knows about Pablo Escobar and all that stuff. And it was particularly dangerous for my family because my dad was working for specific companies that were at high risk of being kidnapped and all that kind of stuff. So I grew up in Colombia going to, school in a bulletproof car.
Wow.
And yeah, anyway, so my parents, when I was 19, they sent me to live in Texas to go to UT, where my older brother was already there. And I had to bring my younger brother with me because they wanted us out, just for safety. And so my two brothers and I, just basically moved to the US for that main reason. And then, of course, I loved the University of Texas and I loved Texas. And I ended up just mostly staying in Texas for a long time. And yeah, but that I want to say that's one thing that's really amazing about Colombia is because it does have that history. And I don't know if you all know this, but a lot of people wouldn't go to Colombia for a long time. Like that was not a destination. And so there are so many places in Colombia that are just really kind of untouched by tourism. And there's not a lot of there hasn't been a lot of knowledge of these places, and people are always just so wowed by it because it hasn't been, it's like the best kept secret. And a lot of it was because it was dangerous, people wouldn't go. But then all of these like beautiful areas that are in it's just beautiful. And it hasn't been, damaged or messed with as much because there hasn't been a lot of tourism in those areas.
Right.
And so
But it's safe now. It's going through a rebirth, or it's gone.
Oh gosh,
Yeah.
yes. It's not, I never stopped going, even when it was not safe. I would always go home and, my whole life, even though I've lived here, I've always gone to Colombia at least once or twice a year, if not more. And it's never, bothered me. But yeah, as far as safety goes, it's totally, yeah, I would not even be worried about that. I mean, obviously, if you're in a big city, but you could,
You make
whatever,
it, you use common sense and all that.
Yeah,
But
yeah, just like anywhere in the world, like here in New York, but it's not definitely not an issue to be worried about with, narco
well,
terror.
I just think it's fabulous the way that the whole country has come and just blossomed. I think that is just a beautiful thing, and that's what we kind of want to experience. That I know there's lots of art, there's lots of uh, um, efforts to help women, and there's beauty and there's culture. So let's talk. I'm going to just show, we have a little presentation so you can see what some of the cool things that are going on I just have to find it. And that's always a big deal for me because I'm not very technologically smooth. I'm knowledgeable, just not smooth. So anyway, here is the but you can see it now, but I've got to go back because oh, see, you're gonna laugh at me. Oh my God. Okay, here we go. and I have to make it full screen. So give me a moment. People are laughing, I can tell. All right, here we go.
Okay, there you go.
So anyway, the trip takes place in July, and we were talking about that as a good time to be there, right? And in Colombia. And one thing that I love about Colombia and its neighbor Ecuador and a lot of the South American countries there is that there's so much variety. I mean, there's mountains, there's beach, there's cities, there's rainforest, all of that in one country. And it's I forget how big Colombia is. It's like I think it's twice the size of Texas, or maybe even not as big. Or I think it's half the size of Alaska. I'm not sure, but it's something like that. It's like not a huge country, but there's so much variety and so much history there, which I really love. And there you are. So we talk about you and what you bring to it, your beautiful connection to the country. And tell us about Medellin now. I know it's the city of eternal spring, but what do you love about Medellin?
So, actually, yeah, also just to pick up a little bit about what you were saying about the biodiversity, I don't know if you all know, but Colombia has the largest number of bird species on the planet. So if you are like to look at birds, bring your binoculars and be on the lookout because there's amazing birds all over the place. And yeah, and it does have a lot of incredible, biodiversity in other areas besides birds. There's, flowers and all sorts of things, but it's just amazing. But as far as Medellin goes, Medellin is probably one of the biggest destinations that everyone who goes to Colombia, like you really should go to Medellin. The city, well, it kind of, it's also had a history of like coming up and just being a leader of a city. Like a lot of countries are looking to Medellin as a city to emulate in how they have like so many green spaces. They've actually lowered the temperature in Medellin by planting so many plants. Like you can see in this picture, like that there's a lot of plants, but it's incredible. Like there's buildings that are built with plants growing out the side of them, and it's really unique in its architecture and integrating it into nature, and it's completely surrounded by mountains. So you are, in the Andes Mountains, and so it's just spectacular. And the temperature, it is like they say the city of eternal spring because it's constantly springtime. It's, you do need a little sweater at night. It kind of gets a little cool, but during the day it's nice and warm, but not too warm. Like you're not going to, break a sweat. But yeah, and they have, so many different areas in the city, so much art, so much architecture, so many things to do. There's markets. You can walk pretty much everywhere or take buses or trains. It's just a really wonderful city. Yeah.
Well, and I know we're staying well, you can see all the greenery there. We're staying in a beautiful place that feels kind of like a jungle in the city. So the way it looks. So I'm excited about that. And we'll be doing the city tour. And I like to talk about Botero because he is from Medellin, the famous sculptor, and you see his stuff right here. Do they have, I mean, is he everywhere? Is he's the favorite son or the,
Yeah. Yeah, Botero is, probably one of the most well-known artists from Colombia. And he, of course, there's Botero art all over Colombia and all over the world. I once went to Hawaii and it was like in the hotel. I'm like, how did it get here? Anyway, yeah, but he's known for making, these very sort of, round people, right? Very, and not just people, but animals or, like food. Everything is very round and filled. And
the
yes, yes. And so he's very famous for that. There is also a museum of Botero's art in Medellin as well as in Bogota. There's a really big one. And he just really got that. He, went with that theme, and it was new and it was different than other art, and he got famous for it. And Yeah, it's, there's sculptures all over the city.
I love that. And I remember we were talking about all the cable cars now. So how does that work? Medellin is kind of in the valley, and then there's
Yeah.
the mountains are around it.
Right. There's mountains around it. So there's two things that we can say about the cable cars. Like within the city of Medellin, one of the things that made such a difference for the people that live, because it is in a valley, and so there's a lot of people that live up in the high parts of have to go up. And those, of course, are the most poor neighborhoods because you have to really climb every day to get home, and it's not easy. And so, and the streets are really narrow the higher you get up there. So, and there's definitely cars and buses, but it's really, I mean, you'll see it's very steep. And so the city built cable cars to help people, like we have buses here. Well, there's cable cars there. You can just take a cable car up the mountain to get to a particular neighborhood. They also have escalators like built into the side of the mountain, and they're, covered so that you don't get wet or it doesn't get rained on. But there's, like outdoor escalators on the side of the mountain so you can go up. And so that's interesting. But a lot of the neighborhoods that have that are, have been particularly through history, kind of like the neighborhoods of very poor people. And in the last couple of decades, the city has really tried to integrate, those neighborhoods into the city. And so by building this transportation, they've really empowered those people to find an easy way to go in and out, to go down to work or come back. And there's a lot of tourism in those neighborhoods now. And there's a lot of history that goes in those neighborhoods where there was a lot of sort of grassroots movements for equality and for justice and for, bringing the people who were marginalized, the same resources that other neighborhoods had as well. So that's part of it. And also this particular slide is about Santa Elena, which is Santa Elena is a beautiful little town just east of Medellin, and it's really, really high up. And so, and you'll notice it's going to get cooler when you'll on the way up, you'll start to notice that the temperature is dropping because the altitude is much higher. And Santa Elena is famously known for these traditional flower farmers. And, back in, I mean, maybe still, but back in the day when flower farmers didn't have as many like machinery and everything else, you would just see them coming down the mountain. Like the flower farmers would carry their flowers, kind of like this guy has on his back, but they would have like baskets just filled with flowers, and they have to like crawl, come down the mountain, hiking down the mountain, and they come to the city to sell their flowers in the markets. And so that was kind of like an iconic thing of people from the mountainside around Medellin, that they would come with their beautiful flowers. And now there's still a lot of flowers being cultivated there, but it's really beautiful. And there's amazing restaurants and food and so many beautiful things to do in Santa Elena as well. It's a small town.
Yeah, and we'll be going to the flower farm. That'll be part of what we do when we go up to Santa Elena, which I really look forward to that. And then we're going to a project that's started by women, for women, Mi Barrio, Mi Sueño. I just love that there's, like you said, I think that's up in one of the neighborhoods too, up on the cable car. But so we'll get a chance to meet. One thing that we always like to do with NextTribe trips is kind of meet local women and find out what they're involved in, what their passions are, what are they struggling with, what have they, their triumphs. And I mean, that it makes a trip so much more memorable. You feel like if you get to be close to the people, you understand more about the culture, and it's not just oh, we're going to see some architecture. That's not it. We want to know what women in Colombia are dealing with, what they're proud of, all of that. So this is one of the projects that we love. They make bracelets and jewelry, and we can get to work with them on the jewelry. And then they do have a boxing program just to build empowerment, self-esteem, that kind of thing. So there must be a lot of that going on, I would think.
Yeah, there's a lot of really strong sort of community focused programs, and it's you can see that, you know, like I'm glad we're going to be doing this, but yeah, you can get tours where you go and see, you know, like different things that people are doing in communities. And there's also like neighborhood leaders, not exactly mayors, but like there's sort of a governance for these neighborhoods up on the sides of, and they're just really, it's, you know, very community oriented. One thing I want to say about this slide that just kind of popped up in my head, which I think is relevant, is that one of the things that's really amazing about Latin America, but in Colombia specifically, is that you know, there's a lot of race mixture and a lot of different races. And I'm seeing these pictures, and you can see that, you know, that there's a lot of different colored skin in these pictures, and they're all beautiful, right? But that's one thing that I think is really something that's important to say about the identity of the Colombian people, is that a lot of people consider themselves, you know, most people don't consider themselves pure anything, because it's a mixture of the Spanish and the indigenous and the African influence that you know, that contributed to who the people are. And Cartagena, which we're going to talk about later, was actually the first port where enslaved Africans were brought into the Americas. And so there's a really strong history of that, and those ideas of, you know, freedom and liberation that came for those people that were enslaved, you know, were like, it was part of the independence movement. When Colombia gained independence from Spain, they did not continue with slavery afterwards. You know, they took it out because those were part of the people that were fighting for independence. So anyway, it's kind of a historical thing, but just, I saw the picture and I thought, look at that, you know, there's just all different shades of skin there. And it's something that I think you'll see a lot in Colombia.
And also just the beauty of that contributing to such a unique culture. Everybody brings from their own background something to contribute to the culture, which is cool. So the other thing we're doing is this is a really big deal now, this Manrique. It's one of those neighborhoods, and I know you and I talked about it, like neighborhoods with numbers, and I wasn't sure which one this was, but there's like just, you know, like 300 different murals through this neighborhood. And I think it reminds me of when we were in Cuba. It's that kind of the way, if you're struggling or something, the way you express your struggle or your dreams, whatever, is through art. And it's like there's so much beautiful art. And this part here, Manrique, I just think that's going to be so fabulous to see.
Yeah, I love this because it's so interesting how people are so creative and so innovative and expressive with their art. And this is one of those neighborhoods that like we're talking about, like you can see that it's built into the mountain. And it's fascinating also because even the architecture, you know, like this is something that people have created. Like, you know, a lot of the houses start with like just the first floor, and then when they get more money they build a second floor, and then when they, you know, and they kind of add on, and it just be like the whole neighborhood itself is a sort of an architectural work of art, like not just the colors that people choose, which are very vibrant and lively, and also just demonstrate the sense of, you know, the exuberance of the culture and of the people. And then, you know, the fact that they want to decorate things in this, you know, really sort of joyous way with the brightness of all the colors, despite the fact that, you know, this is a neighborhood that is in like Estrato Uno, which is what in Colombia they have. So each neighborhood has a different stratus. Stratus, is that a word? I don't know.
Yeah, layer, or yeah, strata.
And so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 6 is the highest. And so, and the reason they have it that way and they put those numbers there is because if you're like in strato uno or stratus 1, you hardly pay anything for your water and your electricity. But if you are in stratus 6, then you pay like full price. And so they have different prices for utilities and things like that, depending on the needs of the people in the neighborhoods, which is kind of one way to help, you know, people have access to resources as well. But anyway, there's a lot to say about that. But yeah, so they're, despite, you know, being technically, I guess, in the lower rungs of the society economically, there's a lot of life and pride and joy in having those neighborhoods, and they love their neighborhoods and they love their homes.
Yeah, well, you can tell. I love that. Okay, so, and we'll spend one day out on a coffee farm that's not too far from Medellin. But I mean, of course, we all know Colombian coffee, Juan Valdez and all that, but it's so famous, Colombian coffee. And I mean, do you drink anything but Colombian coffee, Victoria?
No, I don't. I only drink Colombian coffee. But but I have been drinking this mushroom coffee lately. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, they say that the soil is really what allows the coffee to be so good and so rich. And I think it's, in a lot of ways, it's a little bit like Hawaiian coffee is really good. Like there's a lot of volcanic activity. There's been a lot of things happening, and Colombia being sort of in the northern part of South America has, and in the mountains, there's a lot of tectonic movement and other things that have happened there that really bring this earth to be so rich in nutrients. And you'll see, I mean, literally, a coconut falls from the tree and like 3 days later, it's like sprouting on the ground. And I don't know what it is about the soil, and you walk by and you just see like there's just things that just grow out of nowhere. But in the mountains in particular, obviously, there's a lot of coffee farms. And it's really interesting because they do a lot of integrated farming with the coffee. So it's like coffee and banana plantations are often put together because they, provide the nutrients for each other. Like the banana tree gives the coffee the shade, and the coffee plant gives the banana tree the nitrogen it needs in the soil, or whatever, like those kinds of things. So when they say sustainable coffee, it's really about looking at, what's the best way to grow it so that there's not an impact on the soil and that it's not causing erosion, and how to irrigate properly and a lot of those things. So it's very conscious. It's a very conscious activity.
And I know that those coffee farms I've been to, there's taste, you get to see it all, the process, tasting, at different, I guess there's different varieties within one farm or something. So I'm sure we'll be doing that as well. So we spend 4 days in Medellin, and then we do a short flight to Cartagena. And I can't think of Cartagena without thinking of oh God, what's not the jewel, the lost jewel, the jewel in the crown. No. Okay,
Oh.
I'll think about it. What was it? Kathleen Turner. Kathleen
Romancing the
Romancing the
Stone.
Stone. Thank you so much. I always think of Romancing the Stone whenever I hear Cartagena. And oh my gosh, the pictures from Cartagena are just to die for. That it's like oozing color and life and beauty. And how often do you go to Cartagena? I mean, when you were growing up, did you spend time there?
Yes, actually, my dad and his family are all from Cartagena. So I spent a lot of time in Cartagena. I still have family there. And Cartagena is one of the most beautiful cities. It's one of the oldest cities. It was founded in, I believe, 1531. And it, of course, when I say it was founded, well, the Europeans, took that place and built on it in 1531, but there was people there before, and so it's really interesting also because when you think of, the history of pirates and all of that, it was all happening in Cartagena. The Cartagena was the main entry point, like I said earlier, for enslaved peoples coming into Latin America at the very start of, the colonial period. But it was also the place where all the ships with all the jewels and all the silver and all the goods and everything that was being shipped out back to the European countries, and it was all leaving from there. And so it became very famous for having pirates that would come and try to hijack those ships and steal all the treasures. But the city is built, so it's a little bit like Constantinople in the sense that it's, very strategically placed, and there's walls all around the old city. And of course, the city itself now is bigger than the walls because it's been 500 years. But those walls are still there, and you can walk on those walls, and there's like cannons still sticking out of the walls. And there's a lot of history, and these streets that you see here, they were originally, built for horse carriages, and so they're really narrow. And these houses, they've all been, of course, maintained, but a lot of them were originally built, like really hundreds of years ago. And it's just beautiful. And there's a lot of, you know, as far as like I mean, you literally feel like you're in some movie scene or someplace like that, you know, or Disney World or something. Like it's just unbelievable that the architecture and the beauty. And then it's also right on the ocean. And there's a lot of history there that I could tell you guys stories. And I'll wait to tell you when we're there, because there's a lot of really amazing stories about things that have happened in Cartagena. But it's filled with amazing hotels and restaurants and shopping. And this particular image looks like an early Sunday morning, you know, because this is the kind of thing where like in the evening or on a weekend, you know, it'd be filled with people and, you know, people selling things and all sorts of activity. It's very filled with life for sure.
Lovely, lovely. And you told me that we should stay inside the wall, so we made sure we got this hotel. And I now, after you said that about all the greenery, every time I look at one of these pictures, I see that I was like, it's like a jungle, right, in your courtyard. So very nice pool on the top. We're, you know, in a great location, easy access, which I love for every trip, so people can go out and explore on their own. And one thing I like to do in any city is go to the fruit and vegetable markets, like, and we're going to be doing that as part of a cooking class. We're going to go pick out our food and then do the cooking. So what can you tell me about Colombian food?
Well, you know, so there's different foods by region, and you'll notice, you know, for example, when you're on the coast as compared to when you're in Medellin, the food may be different. But obviously the seafood is really amazing on the coast. Like there are places where, you know, when you go to the islands where you'll order food and they'll ask you what you want. And if you say you want lobster or, you know, whatever you want, kind of fish or something, you can actually, they will go into the ocean and get it for you
Oh my
when you
God.
order it, and they will bring it back and say, does this one look good? You know, like, and if you don't like it, they'll throw it back in and get you another one. But you don't have to be that picky. They're all good. But but yeah, that's you know, that's something that depends on where you're going. But there's just a lot of abundance of seafood, and the recipes are, you know, are varied, but it's just all delicious. It's really delicious. And the amount of fruits that you'll see, you know, you'll see, and inevitably you will see fruits and taste fruits that you've never tasted or seen before, because they're just, you know, kind of not popular in a lot of other places. You know, I'm sure they have them in other tropical areas, but it's very tropical. Yeah. So there's a lot of different kinds of fruits as well.
I, I just think it sounds amazing, all the combinations of potential fruits and vegetables that we don't know. Okay, so we're doing this day trip to the Rosario Islands. So that's going to be a day when we just hang out. We'll be staying we'll be at a place where we can get a massage or just, you know, swim, do paddleboard, all that. So we have a whole day of enjoying the ocean, and look at that water. That water is just gorgeous. And then we're going to another project in Cartagena, which it's a coconut. They use coconuts to create jewelry and trinkets to sell to support their project of helping women, and especially women who have been abused and lost their home or had to move their families. So again, it's one of those ways that we can make a difference when we go into a country like this. We'll be making our own coconut based jewelry, and we'll also be buying, or even if they like, I guess if they like what we made, they may ask for first, we can donate it to them to sell. So and again, it's just so important to me, and I think people who've traveled with us, that we are participating in the culture, and especially helping other women. This is just it's an important thing for us. So I don't know, do you know of any of this coconut jewelry? Have you ever seen anything like that?
Yeah, I've seen the coconut jewelry on this, selling when they sell it on in the streets, and you will see it, and sometimes they make spoons out of them, like ladles, and all sorts of different things, little bowls and hair pieces and combs and all sorts of things.
I that'll be a good that'll be like a half day thing, and then we have more time to explore Cartagena. And I know the women on the right here, and you were telling me about them. What who are they? They're from a certain, they have a certain history, certain specific culture, right?
Yeah, so those women, we call them palenqueras, and they are from a place called Palenque de San Basilio, which is it's a town that is not far from Cartagena, but in the late 1600s, there was a group of runaway slaves that made a village there, and there's a whole story to it, and I will tell it to you when we're there because it's long. But basically, those people they fought for their independence and their freedom, and they didn't want to be enslaved. And they fought so hard against the Spanish crown that eventually the King of Spain just gave up sending soldiers in to try to bring them back, and just left them alone and left them there. And, that was in 1695. And when they started, and I think they were actually eventually left alone by 1713. But then, almost 200 years went by, and people just forgot about them. They were up in the mountain, in the jungle, and they were having, everything. They had their land, and they lived there, and they had their own language, which they created, which is a mixture of different African languages mixed with Spanish and Portuguese as well. And they had their own religion, which was also a syncretism of Catholicism and African. It was just really like a unique place that was birthed. And then eventually, when Chiquita Banana decided to grow bananas in Colombia, the Colombian government said, yeah, you can go over there and grow bananas. And they got there, and guess what? It wasn't just empty land. There was people living there, and that's who they were. So that's what they integrated back into the nation, I guess, because when they left, it wasn't a nation, it was just a colony, right? And so that was in the early 1900s. And they are famous, these women are famous for bringing their fruits from Palenque, and they, fruit growers from their village, and they bring everything to sell in the markets in Cartagena, or that was the traditional idea of how they ended up coming. But obviously a lot of them live in Cartagena now, and they've been integrated into dominant society for 100 years or more now.
So that's what you said, Chiquita Banana, were they were a huge presence in Colombia?
Yeah, so the United Fruit Company is what they were called before they were called Chiquita Banana. And the United Fruit Company was not just in Colombia, but in many places, and specifically in Southeast Asia and Central America and Latin America. And they were, it was a multinational corporation growing bananas and making a lot of money, not. And it wasn't just bananas, but they got famous for the bananas. But it
Are
was
they,
an American company, yes.
there's
And
are there still, well, there's still banana farms, you said, with the coffee too, right?
yeah, there are banana farms. Chiquita Banana and like the United Fruit Company have kind of a bad name in Latin America, because they also there's histories of like revolts by the workers for being mistreated and all sorts of things like that. And it's a little bit of more colonialism in a different way from an economic perspective. And so there's been a lot of, I don't know, people get exposed to a lot of pesticides and so on and so forth. And some of those pesticides aren't legal in the countries where those companies are from, but they use them in other countries. And it's complicated, But yes, there are banana farms. I don't want to go off on a tangent.
I know, I'm sorry. So I like this picture because it just shows one of this is a restaurant in Cartagena. And I mean, I just you were talking about the food in Medellin, the rest or some of the restaurants, but at Cartagena just sounds like it has fabulous restaurants. So I'm right.
Yes,
Like it.
fabulous, fabulous food. Yes, incredible.
Good, good. Well, And I don't know why that my picture's there, but there it is. So anyway, so now I just wanted to find out if anybody has questions for about the trip, for questions for Victoria, who, as you can tell, is so knowledgeable and so excited about her country. I mean, their culture. It just makes it infectious. Leanne, do you have a question? Any questions or?
I I have no questions. I'm very, very excited. I definitely want to do this trip. I put in the chat, you probably already know this, Victoria. There's a beautiful song by Carlos Vives called La Tierra del Olvido,
Mm-hmm.
and they did it for through an organization called Playing for Change, and it just shows all of the beautiful parts of Colombia. Everything about Colombia that makes it so beautiful is in the video, and I put the link in the chat just in case maybe Jeannie hasn't seen it. You probably have, but I've been showing this song and learning this song and having my students that sing this song for probably about the past 15 years.
Oh my gosh. Well, I
Yeah,
will.
and so I mean, I was sold on Colombia before, so so I'm very excited.
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear that. That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I love that song and I love the video. And you know, one thing I really love about that video as well is that it really shows the tri-cultural heritage. It has
Yes,
like indigenous people playing the flutes, the you know, the African descendant people with their African drums, and it shows the, you know, the European instruments with the accordion and the trumpets and it's, you know, it just really shows how multicultural or transcultural it all is. It's just, and that's what
beautiful.
makes it so rich, you know? Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that's great. And so, Leanne, I'm going to give you the $400 discount on the trip if you sign up in the next week. So, and I'm going to also offer people who are watching this, and if they sign up after watching this, they'll get and they put a note that they've watched the video, they get $100 discount. So, we like to encourage people to sign up. The trip is in July. And, you know, so we have time to prepare and we always have, you know, lots of emails to you after you sign up, and we have a meet and greet where we talk, you can ask all your questions. And we have Marcy Mitchell, who had to leave the call, but she's our travel manager and she's there to answer questions and help make it a smooth process. So Victoria, thank you so much. I just caught your enthusiasm. I just can't wait to go. And there's so many places to explore, and it's always great. Like I said, it's always great to get a personal connection. And I know we've talked about it. We haven't set it up, but hoping to maybe meet some of your friends and family there, but which would make it even special, but more special. But that remains to be seen. We'll always cross our fingers. So I just think that for anybody considering Colombia, it's just a great opportunity to get a really heartfelt insight into the country through somebody like Victoria. So thank you so much. And Leanne, thank you. We'll see you there.
Thank you. I'm gonna sign up right now, and then I'm put a little note, $400 off. Yay.
Yeah, yay. I so appreciate it. Thanks, everyone. And
Thank
we'll
you.
see you later.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.